this video is actually months in the making. You all thought I was crazy starting this in January, but it's all kind of come together at exactly the right time, because now we are coming to our next phase of coming out of lockdown in the roadmap in the UK, and we will soon be allowed people in the garden, which is exciting because we didn't do that last year because the garden we shared with my parents, and it felt like it was not entirely a private garden, it was just ours. And so this year we will be able to have people around, and I'm so excited to be able to share the big transformation. I do want to start by telling you this was entirely DIY. I mean, DIY to the point of injury. You may have seen me with a black eye recently. We did some stuff and I ended up pulling a wheelie bin and it hit me in the face and I got a big old black eye. I've still got a bump and it's a little bit sore on my head. All because I was very, very determined to make this a DIY project. I've watched tons of transformations, tons of home content, tons of like, we did this ourselves type of video. And 90% of the time, I found that they had either like a brother or a husband or someone who was like a tradesperson who actually could do all of this stuff for them. So we didn't feel very DIY. No shade to those people, because that's great if you've got that at your disposal. But I didn't have anyone. The majority of this was just me.
So my first job, obviously, was cleaning everything up. I had to get everything out of the way. One of the problems that I have here is that my dad's got climbers. My dad used to live here. My dad's got climbers halfway down the fence, as you can see, or halfway along the fence. And I didn't want to have to cut all of the climbers back, so I thought I could probably get away with clearing everything over to one side and just painting half of the fence. The actual fence colour that I used was great. I really, really liked it. It was Coastal Cliff from Wilko. It went on really nicely. It covered the weathered bamboo, evened everything out. Also went nicely on our untreated fencing. But when it rained, you could see where I hadn't painted. And it was really, really obvious.
So what I decided to do was paint some trellises with a slightly contrasting colour. I'll leave all of the colours below. I think this was muted clay. The trellis was from B&M. And I got 3 of them, and I just find that that little area along the back now is just broken up really nicely, and you can't quite tell how far I've painted along. When it rains, it's still not perfect, but it's definitely broken that area up a little bit. So it's not like a harsh, this is where it stops. I'm really happy with that now. I actually probably would like to put more of that trellis along the back, and I really like the contrast of the colours of the paint, but for now, I'm cool with that.
Moving on to the next big job, I wanted to tackle this back section of gravel because I didn't like the gravel that was there, so I bought more, but of course I needed to clear everything out of the way first. There was a lot more stuff here than I thought there was going to be. Obviously, I'd cleared some of it away so that I could actually paint the fence, but there still was just a lot of kind of rubbish that was left, that was hidden underneath pots and things previously, to finally get rid of before I could start digging up all of this gravel.
That was hard work. I pulled up all of the old liner, put down fresh liner, tried to get rid of all of the old gravel, as much of it as I could, and I've put down this Cotswold chippings from B&M. Would recommend, we've used this tons, and I think it's 3 bags for £10, which is a good deal for gravel. It's not a good deal, you know, if you could buy bulk, then great, but in terms of buying it this way, it was well priced.
Let's talk about the world's gappiest fence. This is just like, there's a lot of space between these fence panels.
So we were considering actually getting a completely different fence panel or reinforcing it, kind of making it more private. But part of me is like, I don't really want to do that. I really like the neighbours on that side. We do like cocktail swaps and stuff with them during lockdown. It's been fun. And I don't really want them to feel that we're blocking them out. But I know we all want more privacy. So I was painting the fence. I decided to paint the fence instead of reinforce it. I also bought some paint for my neighbours because it was pretty much impossible to only paint our side of the fence. I got paint like on the inner parts, you know, in the in-betweens. So I gifted them with some paint that matched in case they want to paint their side. I've kind of gone for a colour of fence paint that's not a million miles away from what the weathered fence panels look like anyway. So it doesn't look too kind of jarring. on the parts that haven't been painted, but you know. So I've gone for kind of a coastal cliff from Wilko's all around that side, and I decided that I wanted to put in some kind of hedging there instead of extra fence panels. And I've not put it all along. I was considering doing these planters all the way along there, and I've just done 2 instead. These planters were actually from eBay. I think I paid £60 per one. They're 6-foot planters. It's a small business on eBay that are selling these planters, and I would highly recommend them. They came really quickly and they're really sturdy. In there, I've planted some laurels, which is supposed to be very, very hardy, and they're supposed to grow really quickly. So I'm thinking I want to cut them back when they get to kind of like majority of the way all the way up to the fence when they grow that far, and it will just be a bit of screening without it feeling really, really closed off. So that's the plan. The laurels are not doing great right now. They came and they were they're root plants, and apparently it's really difficult to get them to kind of like take in the soil. So I need to add a little bit more soil. I'm feeding them some Miracle Grow. I've got some fertilizer in there. I'm working on it, but they're not at their prime right now. I did get them for quite a good price. I think I got 10 for £35. Again, I will leave that linked below for you. I found a website online and was really happy with it. But that's what I'm kind of doing down that side. Down the back, I have planted some things that I bought from B&Q, all perennial stuff. I haven't started on anything annual yet. Everything that's in the garden is perennial, aside from some little bulbs that my dad planted before he left. I uprooted them all and replanted them. Now, when it was still depths of winter time, I actually was using the big shed outside as kind of a potting shed, which is insane. It was actually a barn when my dad had it. He put in heating, it's got lights, it's got a full electric fireplace. It's crazy. And I just destroyed it with soil and just put everything in there. It was like storage room. So I was using that to replant everything. I started sowing some seeds. I've got some things that are propagating right now. In fact, today I want to take some of those out to put them into individual pots because I think they're getting too big for the little trays that I've been planting them in. I'm quite pleased with the progress with those, but I've never done this before, so I don't know, we'll see. I also spray painted some pots that I had lying around that were kind of all peeling. I tried to get all of this paint off and it was such a mess. I ended up just using a load of primer and a load of spray paint, and I think they look okay. They're fine. They'll do for now. Plant pots are really expensive, especially that size. And so it was cheaper to spray paint them, and we'll see how it goes. I also lacquered everything that I put outside with yacht varnish. This was something that was recommended to me by you guys when I was talking about it in vlogs. People told me that this is like the creme de la creme. It doesn't last very long. I bought tons of it from Amazon for not a lot of money, but everything that I spray painted and put outside, I lacquered up with yacht varnish as well. I did also get some extra furniture from Ikea. This was, I bought some of the furniture and Lee bought me some for Mother's Day. So now we've got some nice, I like the grey stuff from Ikea. I think it's really nice, but the very, very large chairs, I can't get the cushions for at the moment. They're always out of stock. And so the small chairs that I put in the back, which we discovered is where all the sun is in the morning, I think they're going to be used more often. And the large chairs potentially are going to just be cushionless. They are comfortable without cushions, and they're going to be for the fire pit, which I bought way back in January because I thought it's going to be like a hot tub. You're not going to be able to buy one. It's going to be one of those things that's really, really difficult to get your hands on once the weather gets warmer. And already this particular one, I think when I looked last, it was out of stock till like July. So again, I will link this particular fire pit for you. I am really happy with it. It's really easy to use. It's a gas fire pit. That's what I wanted. It's supposed to be cleaner burn in general, like environmentally friendly than wood, which I was surprised by. I assumed that it wouldn't be as environmentally friendly, but apparently the thing that goes, like all of the stuff that goes into the air is actually better with propane. Who knew? Please feel free to tell me I'm wrong, but that is what I've read about. And the most of the reason that I wanted that was I didn't want it to be irritating to my neighbours. So if I want to sit of an evening and put the fire pit on, I didn't want for them to all have to smell the smoke because I know that can be really irritating. It's also something that's difficult to get started sometimes. You need to be committed to be out there for a while, otherwise what's the point in starting the fire? I can be out there for like 10, 15 minutes, light the fire, turn it off, done. That's exactly what I wanted. So I'm really happy with that. Speaking of hot tubs, we decided to buy one from, I think it's called Canadian Spa. We had a Lazy Spa Miami a couple of years ago. I got that in the Prime Day sales. I was really happy with it, but it did get some holes in it quite easily. And I don't know whether or not that was from the chimenea my dad had, from cigarettes, from people being around it who smoked, or what, I'm not entirely sure. And then eventually when we had to move it, it got some holes in it from moving it, and it was just completely irreparable by the time it rolled around to last year. So we decided to buy another one, and this one feels a lot more substantial. It's got like a leatherette outing, so the whole thing feels like a bit more protected from holes and things like that from the outside anyway. It's also got an outlet pipe where you can let the water out, which the Lazy Spa didn't have. I used to have to raise it up so that the water would come out. This is way, way better. And the pumps are more flexible. They're kind of more protected. It's got an aromatherapy feature. The whole thing seems better, and it's quieter, much, much quieter. Also several settings for jets as well, which I quite like. But we're enjoying that so far. And I thought that it was more in keeping colour-wise with the garden, because it's kind of like that grey-brown colour. It looks less of an eyesore than the black and white one, with the colours that I've chosen. Then I decided to take on painting the shed. This was something that I was putting off. I really didn't want to do it because I'm like, it's going to be so big. I decided to paint only the front. So I painted the front of the little shed and the front of the big shed. The sides of the big shed are actually painted with silver birch Cuprinol, which is a blue-grey. And so on the front, I haven't done around the door and the window frames, all of that stuff. I've only done the base of the front, and that is all also in that muted clay by Cuprinol. I really like the Cuprinol paint, but it is so messy. It's like painting with water or milk. Milk would be better because it's just there's something to it, but there's not really much to it. 2 coats covered the whole thing. I was really happy with that. And you got a lot out of it, but it splashes everywhere. It didn't matter whether I put like a fifth of my brush in or the whole brush. It was everywhere. It was very, very difficult not to just get paint all over everything. And so I then had to scrub away as much of the paint as I can, but I have got some paint on on the stones, on the paving slabs. And when I look down, I'm like, yeah, there's also blue paint on here. There's green paint somewhere else where my dad's painted with that. It's a really, really difficult paint to work with. And even outside, I would probably suggest drop cloths. Some kind of dust sheets or something if you don't want it to get on your paving slabs, because it seems to impregnate into the stone quite quickly. And if you don't want that, you don't want that, you know what I'm saying. Speaking of, because I knew it was going to stick on there, I also painted the little ledge of pavers underneath the shed, and I painted some pavers on top, like as the step that my dad had put down. So right now I've got an outdoor rug that I bought from B&Q that I've put directly in front of the shed. I've then put some pavers that I've painted with that same Cuprinol, soft clay, muted clay even. And then I've put some pots either side, which I think looks really cute. So I've got my pots that I've repotted, my spray painted ones. They're all kind of dotted around the garden now. I've also got a big pot that I'm still yet to plant some things in, that's hiding the gas canister for the fire pit. Now, some of you may be thinking, the fire pit and the gas canister are too close to the house, which they are. It's kind of the only place we can put them right now because it needs to be on a flat surface. We do have plans for a raised gravel patio, and that will then be where the fire pit is, which is far enough away from the house for it to be safe. I realise the situation right now is not ideal, but it's kind of the only place that we can put it. And we do have plans to move it elsewhere, so just kind of putting it out there. It's also a really good thing to put a fire pit on a gravel surface, because then you can hide the, I want to say wire, that's not right at all. Tube? What's the word? The pipe. You can hide the pipe in the gravel really well. Some people do it with rugs, whatever. I really like it on gravel. And we'll then have the chairs there. It's also going to be an area where if we decided to have like a paddling pool or something, we can put down some foam tiles, put a paddling pool on there, and it's not going to ruin the grass. I think we are going to try and keep the real grass for as long as we can, because we were thinking of maybe doing something with fake grass, which is a real, I know, some of you are like, this is great, and some of you are like, this is terrible, and here are the reasons why fake grass is terrible. This is a very divisive topic. I've been shocked by how many people have got really strong opinions about fake grass, but we're not sure yet, so just, you know, hold your horses. But if we did do it, it would be a very small area, which I know, not difficult to keep on top of, but it's more than mud. The drainage situation would need to be dealt with because all of our garden is built on clay. And so that makes it very muddy, but it also would mean that whoever fits our fake grass would need to deal with the drainage for the fake grass. So it's a bigger project, and we need to kind of consider that a little bit more. Speaking of the clay, we're going to get into the injury. So there was an area of our garden where it was always, there was just a dip. My dad had more patio put in, and I don't know if it had been stood on before, it should have been stood on or what, but it was always a dip. And so the water ended up kind of pooling, and there was always like moss and algae and ice, and it was a terrible little spot. And there was water underneath the pavers. So if you were walking, you could feel they were like floating. Anyway, Lee and I decided we wanted to fix this problem, and initially we thought, well, maybe we'll take up all of the pavers in front of the shed and we'll just gravel that, and that will solve our problem in multiple ways. I started taking them up, and I said to Lee, this is all clay, this is not good. I started digging it and trying to figure out whether or not I could get it level, and I decided, because you could see where the water was pooling, that I needed to make some kind of drainage system. Me being me is like, I can do this, I'm going to fix this problem. So I started digging, kind of digging a trench all down the side of the house. And there's something at the end of it, and I'm saying to Lee, do you think this is a drain? I think this is a drain. I think that this is the solution to this problem. It's a big black thing. I think this looks like a drain, but I don't know anything about this stuff. I'm just winging it as I go. So I'm digging this trench and thinking, I'm hoping this is going to work. I'm hoping this is going to be a drain at the end and I can somehow get the water in there. I'm doing this for quite a while. It's very labor intensive because the clay and the stone is really heavy and I have no upper body strength whatsoever. So we ended up calling a local gardener who came around, looked at what I'd done and was like, yes, this is exactly what you should be doing. Dig it further down, further along. What you need to do is either drill a hole in this or lift it up because you can separate it. So I ended up separating it and putting some really large stones in it so that it makes a hole. And now all of the water that went underneath the paving slabs then goes down, down, down into the drain. We then put massive pebbles in there. It's basically like making a natural drain so that it won't, they won't all sink into the clay again. It will make a run for all of the water to go into, and it's pretty much solved the problem. We don't have that same kind of waterlogged thing that we do have, and it should also help for other parts of the garden because it should kind of drain from underneath the other paving slabs. So that solved that problem. We've then gravelled over the whole thing. So there's big pebbles underneath and then there's gravel. It's great. In the meantime, we'd filled a wheelie bin full of gravel and stones. I realised that no one's going to take this wheelie bin away. This is not garden waste that will be taken away by the council. I was basically using this wheelie bin as like a wheelbarrow is the word I'm looking for. Not ideal, but I didn't have anything else to put this in. I didn't just want to like dump it on the side of the garden. I wanted to put it in something. So I'd done it, I'd filled it about halfway, and I'd moved this wheelie bin the previous day, like, oh, I'll just move it out of the way while I'm doing something. So we'd pretty much filled it all the way up to the top, and Lee was making a joke about not being able to move it. And he was holding all of his weight on this wheelie bin like, I can't do it. This is clearly too heavy. And we were trying to shuffle it around the corner together just to get it out of the way with a view to eventually getting rid of this waste and that becoming a usable bin again. Anyway, Lee went around the corner. I, in my infinite wisdom, always think I can do this. I pulled it, and please bear in mind that he put all of his weight and he's like doing this on it. In a million years, what happened? You could never have imagined, if you were me, and stupid, what happened would have happened. But I pulled it, and because obviously it's on wheels, it fell forward. Everything that was in the bin, which was clay and very, very heavy, clay and rocks, threw itself up at the lid. The lid hit my face, and it all kind of like dragged down my knuckles and fell. And I honest to God thought my face had caved in. I've not had a lot of experience with being hit in the face. I know that's hard to believe, but I thought I'd at least broken my nose. And I was like apoplectic, like hyperventilating, couldn't even. Lee took me upstairs and he's like, I need to take you to A&E. I'm lying on the floor of the bathroom. He says, you need to get in the bath and clean yourself up. And I'm like, I can't get in the bath, I can't get in the bath. I was really, really, really shocked. And I can deal with things fairly well usually. But this was next level. I was like, whew. And I was quite teary for a couple of days. Anyway, I'm fine now. Everything's cool. The black eye really came out. It was a big old black eye. And I learned my lesson. I didn't. I will definitely do some shit like that again in the future. I didn't learn anything at all. This is just who I am. That was what happened. That is how I got my black eye. It was a garden-related injury, and we were pretty much coming to the end of having done everything at that point. I was going to film the video, but I didn't want to film it with a black eye. I filmed other videos with a black eye, but for some reason, I didn't want to film this one with a black eye. I think I didn't want to give the garden the satisfaction. So in the meantime, I did actually end up painting the sheds and doing other stuff, and now it is more finished than it was before. Painting the shed and painting the fences made the biggest difference. Even with those things, I think it's just completely changed the feel of the garden. I absolutely love it now. I did add in some lights. I've got some string lights now. I'm going to add more of those for sure. I've got some uplighters along the back, and I did put in some solar lights down the side fence, which I initially talked about on Instagram. I now wouldn't 100% recommend because 3 of the 4 work and they are spotty. They are solar lights, they're very, very bright and it's impressive, but they're not 100% effective all of the time. So just kind of putting it out there. But I am overall impressed with them. You know, I'll leave them linked, but kind of bear that in mind. It's gonna all completely depend on like how much sunlight each of them gets, I suppose. And maybe that's why the furthest one along doesn't work very well, / at all. But the uplighters at the back I really, really like, and I'm going to add more of the string lights as well. I did also put some string lights in the corner, but they look a bit like a Christmas tree, so that's a problem. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, this very rambly video, and the cutaways have been interesting-ish. And I will see you guys next time, and soon with more home and garden stuff.